Hello, welcome back to another episode from All for United WFC. As you can see, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by our Canadian fullback, Jayde Riviere. Jayde, thanks for joining us. How are you doing over there?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yes, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm going to throw it all the way back then. Let's go all the way back to you. Why are we here today in terms of what got you into football? Why is Jayde Riviere now a footballer?
Yeah, the short answer would be my dad. My dad played football back in his home country in Dominica. And for me, I'm an only child. So from what I heard, I had a lot of energy as a kid. So the best way to kind of expend that energy, my parents put me into, in Canada, we say soccer. But football.
I was going to say, are we going to clash over that a little bit here?
We might
The soccer and football.
But yeah, basically, I had a lot of energy. They put me in football and like what we call little Timbits teams. And I was about 3 years old when I started. And I started rough, I would say, like in terms of I was the kid that was picking, dandelions off the grass. And then after that, as I started to like chase after the ball, I got into it. And since then, yeah, it kind of just skyrocketed, I'd say.
Do you have a first kind of footballing memory, whether that can be on the pitch, off the pitch, in terms of what was your, if you think of football in your kind of life, what was the very first memory you had?
Honestly, I would say like every Sunday, my dad and I would watch Man United play. That was probably like the earliest memory or the most vivid memory, I would say. He is a huge United fan, and he used to make me come to the living room with like a notebook and like a pen, and we would like talk about the players on the pitch. I was like a huge fan of Nani, obviously Rooney at the time as well, and all those like star players are just like legends to me during that time. And I would like literally jot down things that they would do. At the time I was a midfielder, so it was a little different. I was looking at different positions. And then after that, my dad and I would go to the pitch, which is like maybe like a 10-minute walk from my house, and we'd bring a ball bag, and then I would end up like mimicking the moves or skill sets that I saw the players do. And that kind of just became like my dad's and myself's kind of bond that we created over football. And I would say that'd probably be the earliest memory of like me really being involved with football.
You kind of mentioned a couple of players there. And so did you have like a footballing icon growing up, someone that you kind of looked up to?
Nani was like one of the main ones that I looked up to. I used to love Ronaldo as well. Who else can I say? Yaya Toure was another player that I admired a lot too. Again, I was a midfielder, so it was a different position. But yeah, no, my dad had like these players. I just really wanted to kind of just do anything my dad wanted. So the players that my dad loved. I wanted to be like them. But yeah, those were kind of like the mainstream kind of people that I looked up to, I'd say, at that time.
Some good choices there, I like that. In terms of those ones. And just following on from that a little bit, in terms of what was your kind of first football shirt you ever bought or got bought?
Ooh, that's a hard one, I think it actually might have been a Ronaldinho jersey. I want to say it was a Barca jersey at the time, but either that or it would be a Nani jersey at United. But I would have to go back in the archives for that.
That's one for after the show, maybe. Take a look at that one. Obviously, you signed for Manchester United in January 2023. I just want to take you back in terms of your emotions around that move. You mentioned, obviously, your United connections before you even came over to Manchester, but just your emotions around signing for United.
Yeah, I would say it was all kind of like a whirlwind, I'd say, because I was coming straight from university, which was obviously very different. I played in the States overseas, and then obviously coming all the way across the pond, really, and just being here on my own. Like, I always say, like, if you were to tell me or my family that I'd ever play for Manchester United, I'd ever play at Old Trafford, like, we would say, like, we would laugh that off because that's not something you technically see a lot. And, when it's something that you see on TV and then all of a sudden it becomes a reality really quickly, I feel like it's hard to kind of catch all those emotions at once. for me, it was just like a proud moment, I would say, if I could sum it up. Just because I knew what that move meant to my family, especially my dad. And like we talk about my first instances of being involved with football, like I feel like when, you know, my dad came over, he was there for the signing. We got to watch like the Manchester vs City derby game. It kind of just like became a full circle moment. And I think that that was kind of something, you know, from going from the living room and watching it on the TV to literally sitting in the Old Trafford seats and watching it live. Like that is, you can't really find a word for that. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind ever since. And, you know, I obviously love to represent the badge, and it's something that I want to continue to do in the near future.
So you mentioned watching United, obviously, from the stands at Old Trafford. I wasn't really going to ask this, but since you just mentioned it there in terms of Old Trafford, in terms of playing at Old Trafford, because I think as any fan would tell you, me included, I think to be able to play at Old Trafford as a fan, it's almost like you just kind of said there, it's hard to sum up all your emotions. Yeah. I can imagine that being quite a moment as well.
Yeah, it's a breathtaking pitch, to be honest with you. And, you know, I think just like the buildup of, you know, being in the locker room and walking out in that tunnel and, you know, walking out to the music and to like literally fireworks and stuff like that going on the pitch. Like you can never sit in the stands and be like, what does that feel like? And then actually be able to be like, it feels like this, because like not a lot of people get that opportunity. And, you know, from me, I'm all the way back in Canada. I'm watching this happen on TV. Like that's unreal to be able to say like I've touched the blade of grass on Old Trafford, like I've played there. So it's still something that is hard to like actually kind of put and formulate into words that I've played there. But hopefully as we continue to play more games at Old Trafford, it'll become like second nature for me.
You mentioned those fire; they made me jump at the last game. I wasn't really sure what was going on. It was either the fireworks or the fire that went up.
Yeah,
it might have been they made me jump. I don't know about you. I'm sure it was Leah actually that that mentioned it post game that might have made a jump walking onto the pitch. But yeah, I do remember those. Wasn't expecting that one. In terms of you move over here to England, then how did you find, I guess, adapting to just English life, I guess, as a whole?
I would say the weather has been the hardest challenge. And I know a lot of people say like, oh, you know, you live in like the coldest part, the coldest country, which is true. But just because it's cold doesn't mean I enjoy it. I don't enjoy the cold one bit. But I feel like the rain and seeing like clouds every day was really something that was actually hard to kind of get past, I would say. But I think living in Manchester, I want to say it's similar to Toronto in terms of like the city life, which is really comforting, to be honest. It doesn't feel that much of a transition, aside from everyone has an accent over here and you're kind of the only one that doesn't. So aside from that, like it's been a really good transition, and that's also kudos to the team for making it such an easy transition as well.
I like how you said I've got no accent there. That's the first time I've had that. I mean, the UK's got a whole wide range of accents, no matter where you go in the country.
Yeah, but for me, it's hard to differentiate like everyone's accent. It all sounds the same to me, but like I couldn't tell you like, oh, this person. Except for Liverpool, that's the only one I can separate. Everyone else sounds exactly the same to me.
You've kind of led me on nice into a little bit of a follow-up question I was going to ask, because I remember speaking to Fallon last year, and she mentioned when she moved over here that the British phrases, and specifically Manchester words, and there was a nice kind of video on the United socials about 3 weeks ago where Terry was kind of going through these ones as well. Have you picked up any that you kind of use day to day now? Or?
I don't think so. I think if you ask my teammates, maybe I do. I actually try not to, because I feel like I'm then copying and I don't want to copy. But like, I think the only thing is I switched from saying cleats to boots, because that's like, they just call them boots here. But then it gets confusing when I talk about like my trunk of my car. You guys say the boot of your car. So then you'll be like, I was
going to say, I've never heard of that.
And it gets very confusing. But aside from that, no, I don't think I've actually picked up on lingo.
Okay, maybe a couple more years.
Yeah, maybe I'll start speaking like a true Mancunian.
That would be quite something. So in terms of on the pitch, then obviously you've been pretty exceptional this season. Certainly caught the eyes of a lot more people.
Thank you.
So many compilations of you this season on various different platforms, all kinds of things. Obviously, we know your defensive ability playing at right back, but I just wanted to ask, I guess, how much you enjoy helping the team attack as well, because that's something we've seen this season, particularly you and Celin. It's been on that right-hand side in more recent weeks. How much do you enjoy that and helping create opportunities for the side as well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the reason why I signed for United. You know, we're a team that is energetic, high pressing, one that throws numbers forwards, but also has the dedication to, you know, protect our goalkeeper and our final 18. For me, I love being in the final third as much as I love 1v1 defending and, you know, making those blocks and those tackles. I wanted to be someone that is really someone that the team can depend on in the final third in terms of the delivery, making sure that, you know, we're making it as easy as we can for our front three to finish. And for me, that's something I wanted to work on coming into United. Was I wanted to be a more attacking threat. I wanted to be able to go at people 1v1. I wanted to make sure that I could be as much as a defending threat and attacking threat. And I think we steered away from that a little bit in the start of the season in terms of the formation we were playing, and we were working out kinks. But I think once we kind of got it, I think hopefully the fans and everyone is able to see that, you know, we've kind of resorted back to the way Manchester United is, the team that we're known to be. And for me, yeah, being in that attacking third is what I want to do day in and day out on game days.
No, we've certainly seen that, especially since the turn of the year. I think it's been pretty evident, obviously, with the goals scored on that one. And I think just something else I wanted to touch on there in terms of a lot gets spoken about the togetherness of this squad. I think I remember reading Mayer's piece in a kind of captain's column in the program a couple of weeks ago, and obviously speaking highly about this as well. How important do you think that is to results as well? That kind of team unity or togetherness that is often spoken about with this particular side.
Yeah, I think it's massive, you know, because it translates onto the pitch, the camaraderie that you see. And I think I always say I'm very lucky to go to a team that is so welcoming. Like, we have so many international players. You know, some have come in and don't speak any English at all, but we've learned that you don't need to speak the same language to be able to understand each other. And I think that that's massive. And for us, like, our starting 11, I feel like, has shown its cohesiveness, have shown its individual relationships, like you touched on, like myself and Celin. I feel like we've started to form a really good relationship on the side. And before it was like me and Jay-Z as well. And now it's like me and Mel. So I think, you know, being able to be in those situations where we're forming those relationships and those partnerships is only going to help the team succeed in the end.
How long do you reckon it takes to, I guess, form a partnership like that? Do you think it depends on the kind of player? Is it sometimes instant, or sometimes is it a few games to kind of get that? Because you mentioned obviously that, you know, particularly recently that we've seen those partnerships flourish, you know, all over the pitch, really, not just necessarily on your side. But how long do you think it necessarily takes to form that bond, I guess?
That's a good question, to be honest. I think it's dependent on the individuals. Like, I think what we do best is we have such good relationship off of the pitch that it makes it really easy to just kind of formulate it on the pitch. And a lot of it just comes down to communication. And I think we're a team that's very good at communicating, you know, what we need in this instant or what we need from each other. And we keep those expectations high so that obviously in the game, it's just fluid, because the last thing you want to be doing in a match is be thinking constantly. You kind of just want to move off of each other. And most recently, like Celin and I would say, like, we formed a relationship very quickly in terms of, like, we had maybe a couple training sessions together, and I was able to kind of see how she moves, how she likes to attack. Like, sometimes she rather me not overlap, for instance, because she wants that space, and sometimes I don't overlap because I don't want to take away her 1v1 ability because she's so good at it. So I think it's just finding those kinks and things that you know that your partner in this instance would need. And I think, you know, for me and Celin, we formed a great partnership. for me, I like being on the wide side and she on the inside. And I think we saw that last game, how that has impacted the other team being able to do that and play to both our strengths.
That's a really good way of putting it, actually, in terms of that. We speak about it a lot, that understanding. If you don't need to necessarily think you know where the other player is going to be, it makes the whole team cohesion, I guess, so much easier.
Right.
Whether that's defending or attacking. On that particular point, in terms of unity and things like that, we've got to mention, you put this on your Instagram story. And funny enough, it was actually my video that you did put up there in terms of your dancing abilities. And particularly, we've seen it with Melvin Mallow, for example, Simi Awucho as well. We've seen it. I've got to ask, are those dances pre-planned? Do you do them off the cuff? What's going on there?
No, firstly, thank you for that video, because that was comedy. Mel was showing me it on the bus and I'm like, wow, we're just very authentic. I think with that one, the fans were chanting her chant, like the Melvin Mallard, and we just ended up dancing to it because it has like a good ring to it. But no, those Simi and Mel particularly, I'm fairly close with. Sammy, obviously, fellow Canadian and whatnot. And then Mel, I feel like when Mel came in, she came in a bit injured. So I was also injured and we went through rehab together. So we formulated a relationship like that. And since, it's kind of just always been like that. But no, those dances aren't pre-made. However, Mel is one to want TikToks and to make dances. As you've seen, her celebrations have become a major thing that have kind of viraled around social media. So those are pre-planned, but no, that one was just us being us at that point.
I was going to say, we've seen the TikToks as well, that's for sure. Quite a few more this season, which has been very entertaining to keep an eye on as well. Speaking of chants, obviously you've got your own one as well, and we've seen fan-made flags with you now as well. I think it was after the West Brom game. I'm sure I saw you with one there as well, and lots of fans with your name on the back. I guess just my first question on that, in terms of how it makes you feel seeing these things, whether that's flags or hearing chants, and particularly the younger generation of, I guess, supporters that you're inspiring.
Yeah, it's still fairly new to me. I don't know if that's odd to say, but like I would say I've never seen a fan base as massive and as supportive as Manchester United's. Like, I didn't expect to have a chant. I didn't even expect people to know my first name. Like, that was kind of just my bare minimum. But yeah, when I first got here, I had a chant regarding poutine in it, which is literally like a food in Canada. And then now it's transitioned to something else. And now, like you said, seeing, flags with like my face on it. And I think all that is great, but it's the fact that like it gives purpose to fans to see that. And it's amazing to see, like you said, the younger generation being more involved into it, because they are the people that are driving it. They're the next generation after us. And, we want to inspire that. So to be able to see not only the fans, come to away games and home games, but also to have a bunch of little decorative things like that doesn't go past us as players. We see that, and it does mean a lot to us.
No, absolutely. And you said it's a relatively new thing. Do you remember the first time you saw maybe a fan with your name on the back, and just like how that made you feel, really, the very first time, whether that's at United or Canada or anything before that?
Yeah, I think at Canada, I saw a little girl that had my last name on her back, and I think that was like a surreal moment for me. Because I was still relatively young at the time, but like to me that just means someone idolized me at whatever point of time in their life that it was. And I think that speaks a lot to kind of why I want to continue to play football, why I play it. Before it was because I loved it, and now it's because I'm inspiring people that I don't even know I'm inspiring. So I think that that's just the beauty of the sport. And like I said, that those things don't go undetected as players, because ultimately we always want to leave the jersey in a better place than we found it.
That's a really good quote, actually. The way you kind of put that, I've never really thought of it like that from a fan point of view as well. So, yeah, no, that's really good to hear on that one. I want to move on to something just a little bit. This was kind of something when we were thinking up questions for this interview, and we hear a lot of good things about the food at Carrington, particularly Chef Jimmy's always kind of getting a mention. Aoife Mannion's always posting photos of the food, which makes people very jealous. I have to say. But I guess just a quick one in terms of what your favorite is. There a favorite thing you like to have there? And kind of pre-match or just around training?
Jimmy is the best chef ever. Like, his food is impeccable. Like, after training and you just come in and you're like, oh, you just have Jimmy. Like, you just get so happy. For me, I'd say my two favorite is his stir fry station, which is absolutely to die for. And then his bao buns. His bao buns are a very hot commodity amongst the team. People will take those home, so you have to like come in early and make sure you get your order in. But those would be like my favorite. But Jimmy, I think we don't really speak about it a lot, but obviously nutrition is a massive thing for football and for athletes. But like, he makes it fun in a way. It's kind of odd to say, but he makes it fun and enjoyable in a way, instead of just being like, oh, you need to have a colorful plate. You need this amount of carbs, X, Y, and Z. Like, he also brings the joy into food, which makes you as an athlete and in turn want to get your nutrients in a sense. So I think Jimmy is an impeccable chef. I don't know what we would do without Jimmy. I think we'd all break down without Jimmy, but he is definitely like one of many people behind the scenes that helps make our team have the success that it has.
No, absolutely. Lifetime contract for Jimmy is what I'm hearing right there. not allowed to leave. Speaking of highs, we can't, obviously, we're going to do a couple of quick fire ones to round this one off, but we can't end without talking about the FA Cup last year. Obviously, we've got the semi-finals to come after the international break. But in terms of how good that day was in particular, because obviously I can us fans, we're still talking about it, almost a year on now. And it still is, for me, the best moment I've ever had in a football stadium. But I guess for you as a player, we saw you kind of walking past us. I think it was you and Lucia actually kind of jeering the crowd up when you were subbed off as well, in terms of just what that whole day was like for you and a bit on the celebrations, I guess.
Yeah, I think for me it was an interesting time just because we obviously were there the year before, and I was in a different role at that time. We still had Anna that was here, and I was playing more of a role, watching, and obviously we had fallen to Chelsea at that time. And I think for me, I remember very vividly the faces of the veterans, if you will, at the time that were there, such as like Mary, Tooney, Millie, all those guys that were there. I remember how much it hurt, and I remember hurting for them. I remember seeing how Maya and Millie absolutely bullied Sam Kerr the entirety of the game. I remember us losing because we switched off for maybe 2 seconds in a throw-in. Like, it's a very vivid memory for me, but after the game, seeing how it impacted our players was the thing that hurt me the most. And I was only there for a short period of time. So being in that stadium again with a different opponent, but having the same goal and actually winning the FA Cup, for me, it wasn't about me. It wasn't my performance that made the difference. It was just seeing the switch from the year before to then, and seeing how it made Ella Toon feel, how it made Millie Turner feel, how it made the people that still stayed there and have been there building the block of what Manchester United women are now today, to see like the smiles and celebrations that it put on their faces was something that I would take away. Like, you can take the trophy away from me as long as they are happy in that sense. Like, that's what made me feel good after the game. So yeah, the cheers and everything after, I mean, at that time, Luthia and I already knew we were winning the game, hopefully. So we were just celebrating and soaking it in. And again, like we talk about Old Trafford, and the significance of Wembley is massive. And to be able to see a sea of red completely fill up pretty much majority of the stadium, and being able to not only win it for us, but for the fans. Like I always say, you guys are the 12th player on the pitch. It means, like you say, just as much as it does for us, for you.
No, absolutely. And I guess on that, there must have been a pretty high pressure game, certainly the lead up to it. Do you feel that pressure at times? And I guess how do you deal with that in particularly high stakes games, maybe such as that one?
Yeah, I think, you always feel pressure. I think just wearing the jersey is pressure in itself. It has a huge significance that comes with the threads of wearing the kit. But I think for me, in moments like that, what I'm thankful for is, I've had international experience at a younger age. So I've been exposed to being in stadiums and, working with psychologists at a younger age of how to really like minimize the outside noise and focus at the task at hand. And then not to mention having a team that, is full of experienced players, like people who've been to World Cups, Olympics, Euros, have won it. Like those are people that you depend on in moments like this. So for me, like, yes, you do feel the pressure. But I think it's just trusting your teammates at the end of the day is what's going to win the matches. So I think when we talk about the relationship and connections we have off of the pitch, they very much do impact and bleed to on the pitch.
And certainly must help in those moments as well, by the sounds of that one. Right, we've got a couple of quick fire ones just to round this one off then, because the last one's going to be an interesting one, I think. A couple of easy ones. Do you prefer home or away games?
Home.
That's a fair answer. Do you class yourself more as an early bird or a night owl, would you say?
None of the above. But okay. I'm going to say early because we go into training early.
No, that's fair enough. Would you say you're more of a film/TV kind of person or more of a book type person?
Film. Yeah, film.
Do you have a favourite, just out of interest?
Like film of all time?
Yeah, favourite film, yeah.
I would say The Blind Side. Do you know what that is?
This is going to be hard. Viewers are going to be shouting at me here because that's probably a well-known film that I've not heard of.
It's a football, not like actual football, like you guys football, American football. It's like about American football. You should watch it. I'm going to let you watch it and then come back to me on it.
Okay, that's one for my research. And this one you definitely wouldn't have been asked on any kind of interview before, but it's a running theme on this channel. Okay. And I asked Fallon this question last year, and I didn't get the answer I wanted necessarily. And to be fair, 90% of the population are against me on this one anyway. But do you eat burgers just out of interest?
Do I eat burgers?
Yeah, I told you this question is going to make no sense until I get to the point.
Yeah, I eat burgers.
Okay. What would you say is the correct way to eat them in terms of, would you use a knife and fork? Would you pick it up with your hands? What's your kind of, how would you eat them essentially?
Okay. Not the question I was going to think of to be asked. How do I eat burgers? With my hands. Like this.
I thought you might say that.
Use a fork and a knife.
Yes. And I found like 3 people in my whole life that do.
Okay, I have a question for you. Do you squish the burger or do you leave the burger the way it is?
I can't believe it. I'm being exposed by Jayde Riviere on a United show. I can't believe this. This is going to sound horrendous for anyone new watching this. I kind of deconstruct it, which people always say, why do you order a burger in the first place? Because I do take it.
I would agree, yeah.
I take it apart and then eat it with a knife and fork. It's a strange way of doing it. I'm well aware, but
okay. No judgment here. But wow, that's crazy. Okay, interesting. I might have to try it and see. Maybe it's a whole new universe I'm not aware of.
We're starting a movement. We reckon there's about 2 people that I know that are United fans as well. We reckon we're starting something.
Nice. I love
that. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I didn't expect. I will find a play. I'm going to find one at one point that will say yes and agree with me. I'm sure. A final question, actually. I actually forgot to ask you this just before the quick fire ones. In terms of when we're talking about pressure and things like that, is there anything you have as like a favorite thing to do when you switch off from football completely, when you need some space between, I guess, you and the game and things like that? Is there anything in particular that you really like to do to switch off from all of that?
Like just outside of football?
Yeah, so just on maybe an off day or something like that, is there anything that you like to do just to get, I guess, just reset your mind essentially?
Yeah, depends on how many days we have off, but if it's just a day off, really, I just like to recover, to be honest with you. I feel like I try to catch up with my friends back at home just because, you know, sometimes with the time change, it's a little hard to do so. Catch up with my mom and dad. And then sometimes, like, Simi and I will go out in Manchester. We'll go out for brunch with me, her, and Melvine, and we'll just walk the streets of Manchester, maybe get an SIU bowl. I know our team is very keen lately on dog walks, so I've yet to join one because they're a little early for me, but I will possibly try to get on one of those. But yeah, I think those are things that I kind of do just to switch off a little bit, but it's hard to switch off because when I'm not playing football, I'm watching football, so I feel like I'm just always into the environment, but ultimately that's kind of what my day off would consist of.
I say the dog, certainly with Millie's dog as well, that Bongo certainly needs a lot of
Bongo is a horse, I've told her. Bongo is massive.
I couldn't believe it on those signing photos how big that dog is.
I know.
It's certainly pretty crazy. But yeah, we've seen obviously some of those dog walks as well. But yeah, well, I'm sure you'll get on one as well.
I will.
Before the season ends. Jayde, you've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for giving up your time to speak to us today. And yeah, all the best with the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll see many more of you come the next few games.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.